Hey, how you doing? This is Dave. What I want to show you here is how I draw my Fibonaccis and how I get support, resistance levels, and price targets. A lot of people have been asking me how I come up with these numbers, so I'm going to try to give you a quick little lesson in how I draw Fibonaccis. Now, one thing I want you to keep in mind, and I've said this plenty of times before, a lot of people draw Fibonacci's a lot of different ways. There's probably a textbook way or correct way you're supposed to do it, but I know what works for me, so I don't worry about if it's right or wrong. Now, what you're looking at is a live chart of the ES, 1 day, 15 minutes. Let me get my pointer on. Okay. Now, you can see right here, I've got some lines, or I've got a Fibonacci drawn here. And right here is my target, right up here, 1083.45. So we'd call that 1083 and a quarter. I want to back up and show you how I came up with that number. So we're going to take this Fibonacci off, and we're going to go back. And let me turn on my Fibonacci's. Now, if I remember correctly, I had started drawing from right here down to this low. This is what you call a micro move. It's a smaller move inside of the bigger move. Okay, the high here was 1075 and a quarter, and the low was 1062 and a quarter. So I drew from that high to this low. That gave me a 50% level of 1069 and a 61.8 level of 1070.47, so we call that 1070.50. Now, I expected price to come up to the 50% level and find some resistance, and you can see right there it did find a little resistance. The next candle, it closed above the 50% line. So now what I'm watching for is for it to close above the 61.8% line, this red line. Now you may see a dotted gold line right there on top of that. That was yesterday's gap. So don't confuse that with part of the Fibonacci. That was yesterday's gap. Now, it got through to 61.8 and it closed. You can see right there, it closed above it. So what I do now is I just sit here and wait till this up move stops. And it stopped moving up right here at 1079 and change. So what I'll do now is take this Fibonacci off, and I'll start at the low, right here at 1062 3/4, and I will draw to the high of 1079.5. Now, that gives me a 50% retracement of 1071.13, so we'll call it 1071 1/4. All that's saying is I would expect, if the market does pull back, that it will find support right here around 1071 1/4. To the upside, I have a target of 1083.45, so we'll call that 1083 1/4. You'll see that's a negative 23.6% line. So it's really that simple, but until you start to learn the concept of Fibonacci's, it's going to seem really, really hard. But once you kind of start to understand them, it'll get a little easier. Now, let's zoom in on this area here. So you can see from this low, 1062.75, to this high, 1079.50, halfway back. You'll hear me refer to that use that phrase a lot, halfway back. halfway back 1071.13, so I rounded up 1071.25. If price does come back as far, it will find support right there, and then it will have a high probability of going up and hitting this 23.6, negative 23.6 target of 1083.45, which we call 1083 quarter. That's how I draw Fibonacci's and get my targets. I hope everybody out there makes a buttload of money. I want you to always use a stop loss order, and I will talk to you later.